All right, class, let's dive into one of the most powerful savings tools we have in Canada, the Registered Education Savings Plan, or as most of us know it, the RSEP. Now, if you've got kids, grandkids, or any young person in your life and you're thinking about their future education, you absolutely need to understand this. We're going to break down how it all works, how you can really get the most out of it, and just as importantly, how to sidestep some of the tricky parts like a pro.
Just so you know, this entire breakdown was put together by Samir Al-Rashani with a little help from AI support.
So here's our game plan for today. Think of it as our lesson plan. First, we'll cover the absolute must-know basics. Then the really exciting part, how to turbocharge your savings with some serious help from the government. After that, we'll talk about actually using the money for school, and then tackle the big what if. What happens if plans change? And finally, we'll go over a few common traps to make sure you steer clear of them. Let's get to it.
Okay, let's start at square one. We need to build a solid foundation before we get to the more complex stuff. So, what in the world is an RSSP? Well, at its heart, it's basically a supercharged savings account. The big deal is that your investments inside it can grow completely sheltered from tax. It's a formal deal, a contract, between you, the person we call the subscriber, and a financial institution, like a bank, who we call the promoter. And it's all set up for one person, the future student, also known as the beneficiary.
Let's just make sure we've got those names straight. The subscriber, that's you. You're the one opening the account and putting money in. The beneficiary, that's the student you're saving for. And the promoter, that's just the official term for the bank or investment company holding and managing the account for you. Simple enough, right?
And now we get to the magic. This is where the RSP goes from being just a good idea to an absolutely brilliant one. We're talking about how to make your savings grow faster than you thought possible, thanks to government grants. The first number you need to burn into your memory is this one, $50,000. That is the absolute maximum you can contribute over the lifetime of the plan for any one student. Now, there aren't any annual limits anymore, but you have to keep a close eye on that lifetime total, especially if, say, you and a grandparent both have plans for the same kid. It all counts towards that same $50,000 cap.
Now, you might be looking at that $50,000 number and thinking, wow, that's a tall order. And you're not wrong. But here's the best part. You don't have to do it all by yourself. The government is going to step in and give you a major leg up.
This right here is the secret sauce. It's called the Canada Education Savings Grant, or CESG, and it is a total game changer. Here's the deal. No matter what, the government will match 20% on the first $2,500 you put in each year. That's a guaranteed $500. But wait, there's more. As you can see on this chart, if your family's income is below a certain level, they'll kick in even more money on the first $500 you contribute. This is an instant, totally risk-free return on your money.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a minute. You put in your money, $2,500, and boom, the government just drops another $500 into the account. Tell me, where else are you going to find a guaranteed 20% return on your investment right off the bat? You're not. It's incredible.
And this isn't just a one-time thing. It adds up, year after year. Over the entire life of the plan, the government will give you a maximum of $7,200 per child. Let me say that again. That's $7,200 of, well, free money. All of it aimed directly at your child's education.
And believe it or not, it doesn't stop there. For lower-income families, there's also something called the Canada Learning Bond. This can add up to another $2,000 to the RSP. And the most amazing part? You don't have to contribute a single penny to get it. That's right, the government just gives it to you to get the savings started. It's a truly fantastic program. Okay, so you've been diligently saving for years, the government has been kicking in their share, and now it's time. The payoff. The moment you've been waiting for. Let's talk about how you actually get the money out to pay for school using something called educational assistance payments.
So once the student is officially enrolled in a qualifying program, they can start taking money out. Now, this is a really important distinction. The money comes out in two ways. You can always pull out your original contributions, tax-free, no problem. But the government grants and all the investment growth, that chunk of money comes out as what we call an educational assistance payment, or an EAP.
Now, as a tax professor, this is where my nerdy side gets really excited. This is the most brilliant part of the whole plan. The EAPs, they're taxable. But, and this is a huge but, they're taxed in the hands of the student, not you. And what do most students have?
very little income. So, with their basic personal tax credits, they often end up paying little to no tax at all. It is a perfectly legal and incredibly effective way to split income. It's just genius.
Now, there are a few rules about how much EAP money you can take out right at the beginning. For the first 13 weeks in a full-time program, the max you can take out is $8,000. For part-time, it's $4,000. But here's the key. After that initial period is over, as long as the student is still in school, there's no limit on the EAPs for the rest of that year.
Of course, life doesn't always go according to the syllabus. Sometimes, students choose a different path. So, let's tackle the big what if. What happens if the beneficiary decides not to go on to higher education? This is where we need to talk about AGPs. This is, without a doubt, the #1 fear I hear from parents. What if they don't go? Did I just lock up all this money for nothing? Let me put your mind at ease. The answer is a firm no. You have great options. First, all the government grant money goes back to them. Fair enough. But every dollar you put in, it comes right back to you, tax-free. So what about all those investment earnings? That's where it gets interesting.
All of that growth, all those earnings, can be paid out to you, the subscriber. We call this an accumulated income payment, or an AIP. Now, you can't just do this whenever you want. There are some strict rules. The plan usually has to be open for at least 10 years, and the beneficiary has to be over 21 and confirmed not to be in school.
Let's walk through an example. Mary is getting an AIP of $16,000. Now, here's the catch. That money is taxed at her regular income rate plus a pretty painful 20% penalty tax on top. Ouch. But there is a brilliant way to ease that pain. If she has RSRCP contribution room, she can roll that AIP money directly into her RSRCP. In our example, she rolls over $14,000. This move is huge. It avoids the regular income tax on that money for now, and, this is key, it means only the leftover $2,000 gets hit with that nasty 20% tax. This one maneuver can literally save you thousands of dollars in taxes.
All right, final section. Let's talk about how to stay out of trouble. Like any powerful tool, an RSP has rules, and breaking them can be, well, expensive. So let's cover a few common pitfalls you'll want to avoid.
Remember that $50,000 lifetime limit we talked about? Well, the government is serious about it. Let's look at Hugh and Kathy. They each have an RSP for their child, and they don't coordinate. They accidentally contribute a total of $50,500. That extra $500 is now an excess contribution. The penalty? A 1% tax for every single month that money stays in the plan. That adds up incredibly fast. It's why you have to track those contributions like a hawk.
And here are two massive tax traps you do not want to fall into. Putting the wrong kinds of investments in your RSP. Prohibited investments are things you're closely connected to, like shares in your own small business. Non-qualified investments are assets that just aren't allowed in an RSP at all, like a piece of land. In both cases, the penalty is absolutely brutal, a 50% tax on the value of the investment. The lesson here is incredibly simple. Don't get fancy. Stick to standard, qualified investments like stocks, bonds, and mutual funds.
So there you have it. The RSP is, without a doubt, a complex vehicle, but it is also an incredibly rewarding one. It takes a bit of planning to get all that grant money and make sure you're being as tax efficient as possible, all while avoiding those penalties. But now you know the rules of the road. You understand the map. So the only real question left is, how are you going to plan your journey?